Okay, good afternoon and welcome to the Battle of Britain Memorial Trust, the National Memorial to the Few. We thought we'd start our first live shot here this afternoon, showing you the Memorial Airmen and in the far distance there how clear the French coast is today. We have had quite a few blustery showers this afternoon, so hopefully the weather will be kind to us whilst we do this short talk. The second in the series of the names on the wall, 3 more names that we have picked to talk about. I have calmed arm with an umbrella, as you can see, just in case. So we're going to go to the centre panel. It's important when talking about the few to refer to them as airmen or aircrew rather than pilots, because they weren't all pilots. It's true that most of them were, but it's important to remember that the Battle of Britain wasn't just about Spitfires and Hurricanes. Those were the main fighters, and they're always closely associated with the conflict. But if you look at the centre panel, you will see illustrations of other aircraft. Hi Jacob, welcome. Hi Becca, welcome. So you can see here, as I point rather in a military fashion, the Baltimore Paul Defiant. We also have the Bristol Blenheim, which was actually a bomber but was used as a night fighter. It was also a 3-seater light bomber which carried a wireless operator, air gunner, as well as the pilot and an observer. The one that's not actually on there is a ferry Fulmer, but you can see the Gloucester Gladiator at the bottom there. These were used by the Fleet Air Arm during the battle itself. Good afternoon or good morning, Alabama. Welcome to this Facebook Live. Right, we're going to go to the first of our 3 aircrew. Wireless operators, air gunners, observers and others played their own very important part in the Battle of Britain. And that's why the trusts avoid referring them to as pilots when talking about the few as a group. Some of you may have guessed, the first member of the few I want to talk about today flew in the Blenheim. He is Flight Lieutenant Owen Burns, who was very well known to the trust and frequently visitor to the site. We still feel very connected to Owen, as his widow Deborah Burns now works very hard as one of our trustees. And just on cue, we've got our first few raindrops. Owen and Deborah were here on the day the wing was opened in March 2015 and were presented to Her Majesty the Queen on that wild, wet and windy day. Sadly, Owen died just a few months after that on June the 30th. He was about 5 months short of his 100th birthday. Greetings from here to you, New Zealand. Thank you for joining us. Owen was born in Birkenhead, Liverpool, and joined the RAF Volunteer Reserve in 1939 to train as a wireless operator air gunner. He joined 235 Squadron in June 1940, just before the start of the Battle of Britain. The squadron mainly protected airfields and escorted aircraft that were attacking the French ports and German shipping. On an offensive sweep on November 18th, Owen shot down a Dornier DO-18 flying boat. A few months later, whilst returning from a dust patrol over the North Sea, the Blenheim he was flying in hit a tree as it was about to land. It was dark as the flare path lights had been put out because there were enemy aircraft nearby as well. The observer was killed and the pilot was seriously injured, but Owen fortunately escaped with just a broken collarbone. At the end of 1941, Owen flew with the Air Sea Rescue in Hudson, which carried a 24-long airborne lifeboat. He was later involved in running specialised gunnery courses and left the RAF in March 1948. He sadly missed, but having Deborah on board has been great for the trust. So the click you just heard was me opening the umbrella because it's raining a little bit more. I did meet Owen on a few occasions, normally near Memorial Day events, He always enjoyed having an ice cream in Hunting Lodge, when it was the cafe before the wing was opened. Deborah and Owen always used to come back on the day after Memorial Day, and he seemed to enjoy the peacefulness of the site itself. Sadly, I missed his funeral due to site commitments, but the day after I was at the wall, just like we are now, and a small bird, I think if I recall rightly it was a blue tit, landed on my left shoulder. It stayed there as I moved up the stairs, and when I got to the top, the bird flew away. I took it as a sign, and I had to tell Deborah as soon as I could. Yes, Deborah, you're probably right. Owen is having a little bit of a giggle with the rain. Luckily, it's not as heavy as it was before. Oh, I think it's stopping now. No. Up goes the umbrella again. Okay. So, one of the members of the few I also had the pleasure of meeting on a number of occasions was this man, Wing Commander Paul Farnes, who died in January of this year at the age of 101. Paul was a staunch supporter of the Trust and was the last of the few to attend a Memorial Day, which he did last year, standing alone but proud on behalf of all his colleagues. Paul had an impressive about him, not least because he was a tall, distinguishing-looking man. I always remember him. He always looked as fit as I used to say, fit as a butcher's dog. I recall on one of the Memorial Days, waiting for things to start, Paul and Geoffrey Wellham had gathered in the dais in front of the main marquee. Geoffrey was a little bit unsteady on his legs, so he decided to sit down. Paul Farnes, being, like I said, fit, decided to stay standing up. They started chatting between the two of them, and then suddenly Geoffrey looked up at Paul and said, "Why are you stood up, old boy?" And Paul replied, he said, "Well, because I can." So once Geoffrey heard this, he said, "Well, I'm not having that," and he stood up again, and they both started bantering with each other. Paul was an ace in the Battle of Britain. That's someone obviously who achieves 5 or more kills. And as a sergeant pilot, he received the Distinguished Flying Medal, the DFM. At that time, commissioned officers received the Distinguished Flying Cross, the DFC, but Paul was incredibly proud of his DFM, and in later life, he was quoted as saying that he wouldn't swap my DFM for 2 DFCs. Like some other airmen, including Flight Lieutenant William Walker, who I spoke at the first of these broadcasts, Paul also had a bit of a poetic streak in him. He wrote a poem called Readiness at Dawn in 1940. It describes the lives of Hurricane pilots in the battle, and there are a number of references to his comrades in 501 Squadron. Here's a small extract from his poem. "When we're sitting around dispersal to do battle in the sky, I often stop to wonder if today someone will die. It may be Bob, it may be Bill, it may be Morph or Mac, because as like as not this day, some won't come back." Paul was born at Boscombe, Hampshire on July the 16th, 1918. Although he was adopted, his adoptive mother was very supportive. He was worried that because his birth parents weren't married, the RAF wouldn't take him, but they did. Up until then, he had been thinking of joining the Royal Naval Reserve. Paul joined the Royal Air Force Volunteer Reserve in April 1938. And a year later, he was given the chance to spend 6 months with the regular Royal Air Force and learned to fly Hurricanes. After notching... Oh, sunshine has just come out again, so we'll get rid of the umbrella. After notching up a good score in the Battle of France, Paul did even better in the Battle of Britain that followed. On August the 12th, he claimed a Ju-87 destroyed, on the 15th 2 more, and on the 18th a Dornier Do-17. On the 28th, a Messerschmitt Bf 109, and on the 30th he damaged a Heinkel 111. He damaged 2 109s on September the 2nd and damaged a 110 on the 3rd. Damaged a Do-17s on the 14th and 27th. Destroyed a Ju-88 on the 30th and probably a Bf 109 on October the 29th. just before the official end of the Battle of Britain on the 31st of October. It was in recognition of that remarkable achievement that he was awarded the DFM. Commissioned in November 1940, Paul spent some time as an instructor, serving in Aden and then Malta and Egypt, remaining overseas until January 1945. When he returned to the UK, he held a series of appointments after the war before retiring in 1958. On his 100th birthday, I recall Paul was presented with a replica mahogany of his Hurricane. He was over the moon with it and would not let anybody get near it. His daughter Linda informed me that it took pride of place at Paul's home. Like I said, I was honoured to have attended his private family funeral with trustees and a great Hurricane fly past paying respect to Paul. So we're going to move now. Luckily this time on the names of the walls we haven't had to do a lot of walking, so we're going to go to another incredible supporter, member of the few, and one who actually helped pave the way for building the building behind me, the wing. If you look at our YouTube page and view the Memorial Day 2014 video, at about 6.5 minutes in, you will see the film of this man, Bob Foster, at the control of a mechanical digger. Bob used the digger to make his first cut in the bund to clear the ground for the wing. That was in September 2013, a year and a half or so before it was opened by Her Majesty the Queen. You will see from the video that Bob found the incredibly sophisticated and sensitive controls of a high-tech modern digger rather tricky. He told us that flying his Hurricane had been much easier. Sadly, Bob, who was a major supporter of the wing project, died on July the 30th, 2014 without seeing the building complete. His funeral in Hastings was marked by a flypast by Hurricane R4118, which he flew in action in the battle and which still flying today. As well as serving as a trustee of the Battle of Britain Memorial Trust, Bob became chairman of the Battle of Britain Fighter Association in 2009. That is the association that only the few were able to join, perhaps one of the most elite groups around, and now incorporated into the trust itself. Bob was born in Clapham in 1920 and worked for Shell and BP before joining the RAF Volunteer Reserve in 1939. He joined 605 Squadron on July the 8th, 2 days before the start of the battle. On September 27th, Bob damaged a Bf-110 before having to make a forced landing at Gatwick. The next he damaged a Ju-88. On October the 7th he claimed a 109 destroyed, and on the 8th a Ju-88 shared. On the 15th a probable 109, and October 26th and November the 8th 109s damaged. On March 24th, 1941 he damaged a HE-111. 1942, as a flight commander with number 54 Squadron, Bob went to Australia to take part in the defence against the Japanese, which many pilots felt a tougher test than the Battle of Britain. He had another successful campaign and was awarded the DFC in 1943. He actually flew Spitfires there, so he actually flew Hurricanes in the Battle of Britain and Spitfires in Australia. Towards the end of the war, Bob joined the Air Information Unit, and in that role found himself one of the first RAF officers to enter Paris after liberation. He left the RAF in 1947 as a squadron leader and resumed his career with Shell and BP. Bob was one of the first I met of the few. Like all of them, Bob was a great man, and I thoroughly enjoyed joining him for a gin and tonic after the first dig of the bund of the wing. His lovely wife Kathy kindly donated Bob's medals, logbook and his lucky charm and cigarette case to the trust, which are in the wing itself. So that really concludes what we have chat today about those three aircrew. Luckily the rain seemed to stay away for majority of the time. Thank you for joining us once again. Please, if you can, donate. All the information will be on our website or after this film, and we'll leave you with the shot of the airmen, our memorial and the French coast. Thank you all once again, and see you next time.